Hi, everyone. My name's Darren Henry. I'm the Senior Vice President of General Operations at PTC. I'm on the Onshape team. Welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar, we're excited to introduce a new product offering. It's Onshape Government. We'll go through everything you need to know about Onshape Government. I wanted to talk to you a little bit and do some housekeeping. We'd like to make this session interactive. So if you're familiar with the GoToWebinar interface, you might see a chat and a questions area. So please, as we go, don't hesitate to type in any questions that you have, and we'll try to answer those in real time, and we'll take the most popular ones and we'll answer them at the end of the session. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Darren Henry. I'm the Senior Vice President of General Operations. I oversee a number of teams, including marketing and customer success here in the Onshape team. And let me introduce let me turn it over to my co-hosts who will also be joining us on the call. John Russo's here. John, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Darren. My name is John Rousseau. I usually go by JR internally. Darren and Cody are probably going to call me JR throughout the call. I lead the technical operations team at Onshape, and I run the operations, site reliability, security, and compliance teams for the Onshape service. Cody?
Hello, everyone. My name is Cody Armstrong, the Senior Director of Technical Services for the Onshape team at PTC. I manage a team of product experts that handle everything from demonstrations to support, and I'm excited to show you Onshape Government.
Great. I appreciate that, guys. I'd like to start. We have a large crowd, and actually the numbers are growing. It's a large, heavily attended webinar, so we appreciate that. I'd like to start with a poll just so we get a sense of the audience. And the first question is just, are you familiar with Onshape's cloud native CAD and PDM? So if you could answer that, we'd appreciate it, and that will help us set the tone of the rest of the webinar. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. I think we got enough people answering, and it looks like the majority of people actually are familiar with Onshape, but there's a few that aren't. So let me just start by maybe going through. Sorry, I'll start with today's agenda. We'll do introductions as I just did. We'll cover what Onshape Government is. We'll discuss what it is and who's it for. We'll actually do a live demonstration. Cody will do that, and then we'll do the question and answers. But what I wanted to do, since there are a few people that aren't familiar with Onshape, I just wanted to give you a quick overview, sort of a level set on what Onshape is. So Onshape is an offering from PTC. It's the leading cloud native CAD and PDM platform. And one of the things that sets it apart is it actually runs in a web browser on any computer, anywhere. And another great benefit, and we'll talk about this more in detail, is it requires zero IT. There's no download, there's no installs. It's always up to date. Everyone around the world is using the latest version of Onshape. And a lot of people move to us because they're fed up with what we call traditional file-based CAD systems. Only Onshape eliminates crashes and never loses data. There's a number of reasons for that. It enables secure real-time collaboration. We'll actually take a look at that in our Onshape Government offering. It tracks all activity and provides infinite restore. So not only are you not crashing and losing data, but if you have human error, you can restore back to any point in the design. And what's really exceptional about Onshape is it has built-in PDM that's different than any other PDM out there. It's very much Git inspired with branching and merging. All of these benefits allow companies to innovate faster. It removes all the burdens that you have with traditional file-based CAD, streamlines your design process so you can innovate faster, build better products, quality products in record time. This is sort of the interface. You're going to get to know this today, but notice we're running in a browser, and there's some other benefits that are worth calling out. One of the things is we're one of the fastest evolving softwares out there. We put out new functionality every 3 weeks. And again, you don't have to download and install it. We actually just update the versions, and you actually, every time you log in, you'll be on the latest version. The other thing I want to call out is on the right, Powerful CAD. We're not just talking parts, assemblies, and drawings. We have sheet metal, we have frames, we have PCB board design, simulation, rendering, and CAM is on the way. So some really exciting stuff. And as I mentioned at the bottom, it runs in a browser. This is actually a Google Chrome browser that you're seeing Onshape in, with zero IT, no downloads and no installs. Thousands, actually tens of thousands of companies have made the decision to move away from what we call traditional file-based CAD to Onshape. And if you look at this, these are not small mom and pop shops. These are large enterprises. You might notice Garmin right in the center. Trek is one. Hasbro is using us. Dexcom, that does glucose monitoring, are using us. Garrett, which is the largest turbo manufacturer in the United States for automobiles, they're using us. They moved away. They actually have thousands of seats of Onshape. So they're using they're using that cloud native capability to communicate and democratize their data across their organizations. You might notice that government contractors aren't on this list, and that's because traditionally running in the cloud, we weren't able to address the security needs of people handling sensitive data, but that's all changing with our new offering, Onshape Government. And what's exciting about Onshape Government, it's a separate instance of Onshape that's purpose-built with the security measures that are required to comply explicitly with U.S. standards. And these are standards that have to do with cybersecurity as well as handling controlled unclassified information, or CUI, if you're familiar with those terms. So a key takeaway for you is it is cloud native CAD and PDM, and Onshape Government is actually a separate instance of Onshape that's purpose built to meet the standards that the US has imposed for handling sensitive data. And what's exciting about this is anyone who requires ITAR or EAR regulatory compliance is a perfect fit for Onshape Government. This is US government agencies, defense contractors, or anyone who's handling anything to do with weapons or other sensitive information for military applications and government applications. There's a couple things to point out if you're interested in sort of the nitty gritty. It aligns with ITAR and EAR compliance for a number of reasons. Number one is we're hosted on AWS GovCloud. We're utilizing both regions in the United States. We're complying with NIST 800-171-R3. This is a standard which specifies how you handle sensitive information. We leverage FIPS 140-3 cryptography. So we're actually keeping things encrypted at rest as well as in transit using the FIPS standard. And we provide robust protection for controlled unclassified information. So one of the nice things about Onshape Government, it has all the benefits of Onshape, requiring no IT support, eliminating the crashes, enabling secure real-time collaboration, tracking all activity, which I mentioned. It does have PDM with branching and merging, which is significant. And it continues to have the fast evolution with updates of new functionality every 3 weeks. But it has an added benefit in which we make the auditing for Onshape Government, for government contractors and people who have to comply to these standards. We make the audits much simpler because we handle all of the compliance infrastructure in both your CAD and your PDM usage. So at this point, that's a quick introduction. Type in any questions that you have, and let me pass it over to Cody, and we'll take a firsthand look at Onshape Government.
Thank you, Darren. I am really excited about showing everyone Onshape Government. Now, before I begin, I want to preface this for just a moment with, I recognize just based on the poll that Darren did just a moment ago that there are really two distinct audiences here. Those that are familiar with Onshape and have used Onshape or at least seen it in the past, and those that perhaps entirely new to Onshape. And so one of the first things I would like to say is for those familiar with Onshape, what you're going to see here today is going to look and feel a lot like what you're used to, and that's by design. But it's important to stress that what I'm showing you here today is a totally different environment than the traditional Onshape that you're used to. So this was built on Onshape's own separate instance running in AWS GovCloud, like Darren mentioned before. So this is a deliberately siloed environment from the commercial version of Onshape. So while it may look and feel the same, it is quite a bit different in the back end. There are a few subtle cues that you'll notice when you're signing in to Onshape and a handful of other places that give you an indication that this is Onshape Government. First off, you'll see the banner across the top when you sign in warning you that this contains US government information. Of course, you also have a banner across the bottom indicating that this is Onshape Government. So there are a handful of small changes that you'll notice when signing in and a handful of other places that indicate that this is Onshape Government. And this data is controlled with Onshape Government. But as I sign in, it's a very familiar interface. Now, for those not familiar with Onshape, you may not be aware of the underlying benefits of Onshape. And one of the biggest is our accessibility. You saw me sign in. I'm now signed into my entire CAD system. Here I'm seeing the activity associated with my organization. If I switch to the documents page, you'll see a list of all of my projects. If I open up a document, I can open up that design and start modeling it. I'm seeing everything that I need for my engineering role entirely in a browser. And that means there's no files, there's no downloads, there's no installs, there's no updates. You simply sign in through any modern browser from any computer. And this could be Windows, Mac, Linux, Chromebooks. I'm running this in Chrome on a MacBook at the moment. But the most important thing is our architecture. We allow access from any device anywhere. And that's one of the most important aspects of using Onshape. Now, if you're familiar with Onshape, this is always, of course, going to look very familiar, and it's meant to. So I'm going to go through a handful of, kind of the benefits of using Onshape at the basic level for those that are new to Onshape. And then we'll get into some of the things that really make it unique with respect to Onshape Government. So we'll just start with an intro for those that are new to Onshape and just learning about it. And I've already shown you it's accessible through the browser. I signed into my documents page and I'm opening up a design and I can start my work. And for those that have experience with other CAD systems, this is all going to look and feel very familiar to you. So I'm just going to dive into a document here. We'll start a sketch and I'm going to start sketching a really simple connecting rod for that reflector that you saw just a moment ago. And as I'm sketching, you're going to see real feedback in real time as I'm sketching to the degree of constraints that I have or don't have. You'll see in this case I have underdefined geometry in blue and fully defined geometry in black. But as I go through and add this sketch geometry, I just want to highlight that this is meant to be easy to adopt. So if you've come from SolidWorks or CATIA or any other professional grade CAD system, just be aware that the engineering team will pick this up rather quickly. But we have made the opportunity to do some things that are really unique that I want to highlight. First off, as I go to define the geometry here, I'm just going to create a series of lines. Notice that as I'm mirroring my geometry about the construction line, let's do a mirror. Select the geometry, I automatically get that symmetric behavior that you'd expect out of your sketch. Add a dimension to define the width, and we have our first basic sketch. And I'm walking you through a basic sketch because I want to underline a handful of things that we've done that are unique. Parts, assemblies, and drawings have been around for some time, but we've taken the unique opportunity of starting from scratch to really rethink some key workflows. And there's lots of little things in the core of Onshape that we've done to try and improve the user experience. One great example of this is that geometry like this can be extruded as is. There's no need to manually trim the geometry to accommodate for a single enclosed contour. So I can go straight to the extrude feature, define the depth for my extrude, and hit OK, and I didn't have to go in and manually trim geometry to accommodate for that extrude feature. And that's something that is a small thing, but as a user dealing with these kinds of features all day long can make a very big difference. But the main thing that I want to illustrate is just the ease of use. If you're familiar with creating extrudes and fillets and lofts and sweeps and all the features that you're used to in traditional parametric MCAD, you're going to have access to those here. And there's a handful of little things that we've done to try and improve the user experience that goes with day in, day out engineering. And here's a good example of that. Here we have a very basic extrude for our connecting rod that joins our reflector. And what I'd like to do is, of course, insert this part into the assembly. And building assemblies is one of the most important pieces of a CAD system. So I'm just going to go in and define, let's grab our part and drop it into the assembly. Now, what most people would do in mini systems is use a combination of faces to constrain this connecting rod to this pivot arm. And in Onshape, what I really want to point out here is we've taken this opportunity to rethink something core like mates and improve the experience. And so now I can define what we refer to as mate connection points when defining my mate. And so in this case, I want a simple revolute mate that allows for rotation. And as I mouse over geometry, you'll see these automatically generated attachment points. We refer to them as mate connection points. And it makes it very easy to grab a mate connection point on one part and a mate connection point on another part and bring those 2 points together. And so in many other systems, this would be a combination of mates, at least 2. And if you think about mating a bolt in a hole in a traditional system, a lot of users we found will use 3 different mates, something to keep it from spinning, something for concentricity, and something to locate the bolt head with respect to the rest of the geometry. And so it's this laborious process of selecting these faces to define your mates. But in Onshape, the process is different. You select mate connection points that are these defined points, and then you define the type of movement that you want with respect to those mate connection points. And so it makes it very easy for me to say, select the points on this cylinder. For instance, these 2 points, right? And now, with in essence just 2 mates, I now have the working motion that I would expect to see in this assembly, connecting that cylinder to the pivot arm via my link arm. The main thing I would like to stress with that is that we've taken the opportunity in these core areas like sketching or mates or a handful of other things that I'll demonstrate to rethink how users interact with CAD and improve upon the experience of even something as basic as mates, which has been around for a very long time. But Onshape also has well thought out interface in a lot of different places. For instance, the bill of materials in many other systems is just a table that goes into a drawing. In Onshape, it's something you can interact with. So I can go in and add columns. I can use this to cross-reference geometry in the actual interface. It's something I can interact with at the assembly level and isn't simply a table that goes into the drawing. Now, of course, it can, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But you can also check out exploded views. So here I've created a quick exploded view of this assembly. Quick and easy, and Onshape's architecture for manipulators and how it's constructed in its mates make this even easier than traditional systems. So exploded views, advanced bill of materials capabilities, we've really taken the opportunity to rethink some of the core assembly process and improve upon it. And of course, we can't talk about core CAD without talking about drawings. So for the sake of the presentation, just to go through this quickly, Onshape has amazing integrated drawings. In this case, I'm just going to create a simple drawing of my assembly. We'll grab the exploded view in an isometric display. That looks good. And we'll do the explode, and we'll put this into the corner here. So awesome exploded view tools, easily integrated into the drawing. We'll turn on the shaded view, and I will insert my bill of materials. And the thing I'd like to point out about this is what's amazing, and what I always have to remind people, is that everything I'm doing here is completely browser-based, right? So every interaction is in the browser. And so it's very easy for me to drop in, balloons, tie them to the bill of materials, and move on. But I just wanted to start with the basics, parts, assemblies, and drawings, because I want to stress that Onshape not only has robust parts, assemblies, and drawings, but has took the opportunity to really rethink some of those key functions like mates or like sketching I could go over countless examples, but in drawings, we have wonderful inspection tables that would work well with these types of parts. So I just wanted to highlight, we've taken the opportunity to rethink key core pieces of your workflow. But it's important to stress that CAD is only a piece of what Onshape does. And it's really a PDM system at its core with a CAD system on top of it. And I really like to stress that because PDM systems in any other environment are this kind of laborious thing that you have to interact with. It's installed separately. It has clients and servers that have to be managed. It takes a tremendous amount of time to set up. So it generally has this negative connotation associated with it. And that is not the case with Onshape. PDM is built into the core of Onshape, and it's just running in the background. And what do I mean by this? Well, one of the biggest tools that Onshape has in its data management tool set is what we refer to as versions and versions in history. Every interaction that you make with an Onshape document is tracked. Every interaction anyone makes with an Onshape document is tracked. And so you can see every event in real time. And so we mentioned audit trails and the ability to see who's doing what and when. Versions in history allow you to do that. You can very easily see this person at this date made this change. This also means that you can easily restore. And so we tell people, it's easy in Onshape to restore to any moment in the history, going all the way back to the very beginning of the document's creation. So don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to try different things because you always have that means of restoring, right? You don't have to worry about breaking the design like you do in many other systems. But versions in history, an important piece of the data management puzzle. Everything that you do in Onshape, everything anyone does in Onshape is tracked in that history and can be seen by anyone with the appropriate permissions. So versions in history, kind of the core of our PDM capabilities. Now taking that to the next step, we refer to as versions, the ability to capture a moment in time. Well, we can create a version to do that. And a version is just that snapshot that allows you to go back to that moment in time. But it's great for remembering a certain point in history that's really useful to you. Now you can create versions. You can also create branches. And so you can create branches off of versions and have independent sandboxes to work within, right? And so you can have perhaps a different engineer in a different branch working and then merge those back together later on. And so we truly enable a Git style workflow that I think a lot of users will really appreciate. Now, the history, versions, creating branches, merging, all really unique to Onshape. But what we hear a lot of is we want the ability to define not only a moment in time and see all the interactions. We also want to be able to control in a formal way revisions. We want a formal approval process. And we want all these processes that are common in large organizations. And Onshape absolutely supports that with our formal release management tools. Now, I want to take a moment to set this up because I think there are a lot of users out there who are familiar with release management and having a workflow that defines your approved process for your business. And what I'd like to stress is that those systems oftentimes take tremendous amount of energy to set up. And so in traditional PDM system, you have clients and servers that need to be configured, workflows that need to be built, revision schemes that need to be found. There's a whole bunch of manual setup for each individual user. It tends to be a laborious process. In Onshape, it couldn't be simpler. When you go into your company's, in your case, your business's release management settings, it's literally a checkbox. You check enable manage workflows. Now you can define your own workflows. In this case, we're using a pretty basic workflow to start with. You can define your own revision schemes. So you can import your own revision schemes or define them here. You can define a whole number of administrative level settings as an administrator. But the important thing to stress is that is really all that's needed to set up our release management process in Onshape. There's no need to manually define and install a PDM system or a separate client and server relationship. You simply turn it on in the settings for your business. So it couldn't be easier to use and to set up. Now, with respect to using, It's just a right-click menu option. So our release management tools are fully integrated into Onshape. They're not an afterthought or a separate package that has to be managed. It's fully integrated, meaning you right-click the assembly or the drawing or the part that you want to release, and you will see that option to release. Now, in this case, Onshape has not only integrated the level of your workflows, but it's also pulling in information like you need part numbers that haven't been defined, or you have a part that has regeneration errors. So it's looking at individual parts and determining are they appropriate to be released. But you can go through and define your release name, release notes, any approvers that you'd like in the workflow that you've defined. In this case, this very simple default workflow. But these can be configured to match your business's needs. And so release management completely integrated, very simple to turn on, and very easy to use. So the last thing that I really wanted to take a moment to emphasize, and I'm going to wrap things up for my demonstration here, is I'd like to show you how we handle collaboration, because I think that's something that's really unique to Onshape. Now, before I go into this, I'd like you to stop for a moment and just think about how you handle collaboration today. When I mean collaboration, I mean, how do you work with other engineers if they have parts or assemblies that they're working on? And I would say that the majority of people that we talk to, I'd say 95% or more, their workflow for collaboration involves some form of sending a copy of a file. And that could be emailing a copy of a file, syncing a copy of a file to Dropbox, or it could be any number of different means. But in the back end, what you're really doing is copying files from one destination to the other. And it's important to understand that at its core, that's the way the majority of the world works today with respect to CAD. Onshape is wildly different. Rather than sending someone a copy of your CAD data in the file form, we allow you access into a document based on those permissions that you have defined. And what that means is true real-time collaboration. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to click Share in the top right corner, and I'm going to invite Darren. Darren's on the call with us here today, and I can define his permissions. So I can say, well, Darren's allowed to edit, or I'm going to be more restrictive. I'm going to say you can't edit, you can only view. And I'm going to, again, go back to think about how you would handle this today. How would you share view only with someone? And how do you protect your intellectual property in that scenario? In this case with Onshape, I can specify can view and restrict their ability to copy, restrict their ability to export. Another thing I would like to highlight, especially for those that are familiar with Onshape, you may notice that options like public and anonymous link sharing have been removed for Onshape Government. And that's, of course, a deliberate decision for the Onshape Government offering. But in this case, everything else behaves just like Onshape. I can define Darren's permissions as edit. I can give him the appropriate permissions that he needs. And I can click Share. What this does is it sends an email to Darren and gives him a link to join into my document. And it's an important thing, a distinction to define, is that Darren isn't being sent a copy of the data. He is being invited into my workspace where I'm doing my work. And a few things I would notice, I would point out that you should notice. Notice the visual cue. So in the top right corner, I can see that Darren's in this workspace. If I double click on his social cue, I'm seeing his screen in real time, something we call follow mode. And so we're not working on two totally different data sets here. We're working on the same one at the same time. Now, Darren can work with me. So for instance, if Darren is an expert in modeling connecting rods, well, I can go into my connecting rod and tag him with a comment. So not only do we have the ability to model in real time, we also have the ability to communicate in real time. And so now I'm tagging Darren on a comment and saying, does this look accurate? I'm going to assign it as a task to Darren, meaning that he has to acknowledge this and check it off his list of tasks. And then I hit assign, and he gets sent a notification. He'll see a flyout that says Does this look accurate? Not only is he going to see the flyout, he's going to know that I'm attaching it to this part, the part that we just made in our demonstration. And you'll see that Darren's actually already in here working. So you can see that it tells me a new feature is being created in this workspace, in this part studio. And I get the visual cues that, hey, someone else is here and they're modifying this document. And again, I want to stress that this is unique to Onshape's architecture. And so I can see in a moment's notice what the latest state of the design is. And so I can see that as Darren adds a sketch and as he adds that extruded cut and he adds any subsequent features, I don't have to save, I don't have to check in, there's no syncing of files, there's no replicating of file servers. It updates in real time, instantly for everyone, anywhere in the world. And so that is something, just to reiterate, is unique to Onshape's architecture. No one else allows you to update in real time as you design. And it eliminates all of the potential issues associated with file versions. It eliminates all the potential confusion caused by file versions. You can see that instantly Darren created a linear pattern of that whole cut in my link arm here, and I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to hit refresh. I didn't have to save. Now he's changing the colors around. He's making all of these modifications to it. And what's really neat is I know exactly what's going on in real time. So huge thank you to Darren for helping me out there. And that is what I had planned for you. I really want to encourage you, if you're just diving into Onshape, we have the Discovery Program. Darren's going to mention that in just a moment. I think that's a great place to get started. But without further ado, I want to pass things back over to Darren. Thank you, Darren.
Thanks, Cody. I had to unmute. We're getting a ton of questions, and I really appreciate it. There's some common ones that we thought we should address ahead of it, and then we'll open it up to the questions that you're asking in the session. But the first question that we get asked quite a bit about Onshape Government is, what is the difference between the commercial and the government offerings? And a lot of people are asking this in the interface, the GoToWebinar interface. But let me highlight a few with this table. So the first one that I want to point out is the Onshape commercial offering has a number of plans. We have a hobbyist, which is a free plan. We have our student and educator plans, and then we have a number of paid plans, including Standard, Pro, and Enterprise. For Onshape Government, at least initially, we're only offering the Enterprise plan. So it's important that you know the Enterprise plan is the offering for Onshape Government. Another question that we get asked all the time is, what about the mobile apps? With the commercial offering, we have iPhone, smartphone, iPhone, Android. We have iPad apps, tablet apps. They won't be available for Onshape Government. And then, due to the security requirements of Onshape Government, we've eliminated access to the public documents and anonymous link sharing. And then, at least initially, we won't have third-party integrations as well. And then there are some technologies that we've introduced, actually based off other PTC technologies, that won't be available, at least initially, in Onshape Government. And the one that we recently announced that is the thickness analysis. Now, this is something we are working on, but at least you should know that with the initial release of Onshape Government Enterprise, it will not include capabilities like thickness analysis. There's some other questions as well worth answering. One is, when will it be available? Well, right now we are testing. We're in an exclusive early visibility program with select customers. This is by invite only, but we're targeting January for for general access, government access. So we're hoping that it'll be generally available in January. That's what we're targeting. And then we often get questions, what about FedRAMP and what about CMMC? And I think for the answer to this, I'm going to rely on JR. JR, can you comment on our plans for FedRAMP and CMMC?
Absolutely. Thanks, Darren. So for those that are familiar with it, the FedRAMP process is quite a long one. We have the intent to provide a FedRAMP moderate environment and a CMMC 2.0 level 2 environment. We are working with our 3PAO, and we're working with a bunch of other folks inside of PTC that already have these certifications. And so we really hope to be able to provide that, assuming we pass all of the appropriate audits as soon as possible. Looking like at least a year out right now for our ATO, but this is something that we definitely want to provide. But the ITAR EAR environment is the one that we're providing right away.
Thanks, JR. And then I think now's a good time to start looking at the questions that we've been asked along as this session has progressed. And one, JR, that we get asked quite a bit, and there's a number of these in the chat, is how does data flow between the commercial offering and the government offering? And if someone is on the commercial offering now, can they move their data to the government offering?
Yeah, great question. So currently, for compliance reasons, the commercial and the government offerings are completely separate. They're running in separate clouds. There's actually no connection between the two of them. So at least for our initial rollout here, we are going to have our customers that are already using Onshape in the commercial environment export their documents and re-import that into government. And we understand that that's not an ideal solution, but that is the one where we can kind of maintain compliance. We are currently working internally on a mechanism to make that easier and also make it more high fidelity so that you don't lose any of your feature history. And that will be coming sometime later.
Thanks, JR. And then another question is about the auditing capabilities of Onshape, and will those be available in Onshape Government?
Yeah, so the enterprise analytics that everyone is familiar with the enterprise plan and the commercial environment are all going to be there in the Onshape government environment. This is actually one of the most sought after features that we have, is the ability to understand kind of how the design process works with your organization, how your teams are doing, what documents they're working on, any changes that have been made to them. So all of that will be available in Onshape Government Enterprise.
Yeah. There's a number of questions about the capabilities within Onshape, and they span from, do we have cable and harnessing? Do we have model-based definition? Do we have custom drawing sheets? And I just want to point out, when you look at CAD capabilities, the CAD capabilities in Onshape Commercial will also be available in Onshape Government. And as we release new capabilities, both instances will update together. But I do want to point out, if you have specific questions, we do have cable and harnessing capabilities. We do have custom sheet sizes. Someone's asking about large assembly performance. These are something that you can check for yourself. We have a number of great ways for you to try Onshape, whether you're using our hobbyist program, where it's full capabilities. It's just your data is public, or you can sign up for the Onshape Discovery. But if you're interested in the actual CAD capabilities of Onshape, please contact us and reach out, and you can try them firsthand. But in most of these questions, I think the answer is affirmative. We have all those capabilities, and I think you'll be really happy with the performance. I think it's mind-blowing, especially with no software installed on your system.
And Darren, we're seeing a lot of questions here about kind of CAD capabilities and features there. In addition, for a lot of the companies that are going to be using Onshape Government, there's additional compliance work that we need to do. And so we're looking forward to working with the compliance team members in your organization to figure out how best to get this to work into your environment. So please reach out to us, and we can work with you to see how we can make Onshape Government part of your workflow.
Right. One question we're getting asked is there a price difference between our commercial enterprise offering and Onshape Government? There is. We're not prepared to disclose it now, but we encourage you to work with our sales specialists. And actually, I'll put up a way for them to contact you in a moment. But yeah, if you are interested in Onshape Government, there is a different cost structure, and the best thing to do is talk to our sales reps. JR, is there any other questions that you feel we should answer?
There's one that I'm answering right now, which is, will updates be as frequent as on the commercial side? It's probably going to be easier if I talk it instead of type it. We are going to keep the same cadence as our commercial environment, so every 3 weeks, and we're going to be updating them with the same features, maybe a couple of hours apart, but we want to keep the environments in sync. This is actually an important thing to understand if you're trying to get Onshape Government into your business, is that we will not have the ability to pause deployments if you're in a sensitive part of your development cycle. This is Onshape, and we will be deploying every 3 weeks. Generally, that's a huge benefit for our customers, but we want to make sure that your compliance people understand what that is as well.
And here's a great question. Will feature script work within Onshape Government? For those of you that don't know, feature script is our programming language, which our users use to create custom features. It's the same language we use to create our features within Onshape. We've sort of open sourced that or gave open access to our users. Onshape Government will support feature script. However, a lot of times feature scripts are shared, or custom features are shared using the public repository. You may have to recreate those custom features within your secure Onshape Government installation. Is that fair, JR?
It is. Just trying to scan through these questions at the same time too.
Yeah, I think we've covered most of them. We'll keep looking at these. If you have any new questions, please type them in. I wanted to highlight a couple things. I mentioned the Onshape Discovery Program. Now, this isn't the Onshape Government offering, but it is a way for you to try Onshape firsthand if you're not familiar with it. You can go to our website and sign up. If you're a qualified professional, you can actually use Onshape. It's the Onshape Professional, the commercial professional version, for up to 6 months free. So I encourage anybody that's not utilizing Onshape to actually give it a try. It will keep your data private, and you can actually take it through its full course. The other thing that I wanted to do is actually run a poll. We mentioned that the pricing structure is different. We see that a lot of people are familiar with Onshape and are really excited about this new offering. So I wanted to ask you, would you like a Onshape Government specialist to contact you? And we can talk about your needs, if you have extra security needs, or if you're interested in pricing for your organization. Go ahead and click yes, and we'll be in contact. If you're not interested, obviously, you have other options to get to know Onshape through our Onshape Discovery Program, or maybe our hobbyist program. And I'll let that cook in a little bit while people are clicking. JR, any other questions that we should address?
One here is, can you still use the Open API to integrate ERP systems? And yes, our full API will be available in Onshape Government. As with a lot of the other features, you have a shared responsibility model where you need to control those API keys and make sure that your developers or engineers know what to do with any information that they're pulling out of Onshape. But it's a very important part of our platform, so the full API will be supported.
Great. And there is a lot of questions about importing data into Onshape Government. Do you want to make a comment about that?
Yes, I've commented this on a couple of places. Yes, so currently for our initial release, because of the separate environments, we are going to require export from the Onshape commercial environment, in a format like STEP, and import into Onshape Government, which I understand will definitely lose feature history. We are looking at doing something better than that, but that will not be available in the initial release.
Right. And then there's a simple question: does Onshape Government also have unlimited storage? And the answer there is yes.
It does, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, JR.
Just one more question here. Will Gov be able to export STEP, Parasolid, and STL? Yep. So all of the export formats that we support in the commercial environment are going to be available.
Perfect. All right, at this time, I think we've answered most of the questions that people have typed in. You can go to our website. There is a landing page on Onshape Government. You can always go to the Drift bot at the bottom of our website. That's an interactive chat where you can talk to our sales specialists and our technical experts. So if you have any further questions, you can always type that in. We appreciate you joining us today. We hope that Onshape Government suits your needs and that you'll reach out if it's something of interest. So I appreciate it. Thanks, Cody. Thanks, JR. And we'll end the session now.